Well, Jeremy McIntyre here, and welcome back on behalf of Australian National Review to part 2 of why I founded Australian National Review. And so I think what's important, so what happened after in 2013, as I said, I was hosting Arnold Schwarzenegger out in Australia, where 3,000 people or more attending our speeches with Arnie, myself and other speakers. We had the US ambassador to Australia opening the events. And but about the same time, I had launched a political movement. I'd created a movement called 21st Century Australia before that, and because the state of politics in Australia, so many people were fed up with both major political parties and both options. I think at the time was Tony Abbott and Julia Gillard, and there was a real need, I believe, for a credible third party, a political party. So we also at the same time turned the 21st Century Australia movement, which was all about how do we bring our country, our passionate Australians, into the 21st century, how to make Australia great, basically. And I'll share some speeches that I did inside Parliament on my vision for 2050, which was quite rare for if you're going to go into politics to actually have a vision beyond 3 years. Most politicians, unfortunately, have a vision to how to get re-elected. And already we were become a political party with policies on every state, on the country. I wrote a book, 101 Ways to Improve Australia, and very passionate about wanting to make the country a better place, coming from a good space, and certainly no agenda other than that to go into politics. Like for a business person to go into politics in Australia, it's not like America. You need to be probably wealthy if you want to become the president of the United States to fund your chance to do that. And in America, you can actually become president of the United States because the people vote. In Australia, we don't get to select our prime minister. We get to select the party, and the party chooses the prime minister. That's why Australia sometimes joked about, because we keep changing prime ministers, because the party keeps doing that regardless of what people say. So little did I know, by going into politics and launching Australian National Review would be such a threat to certainly the major political parties, and one political party in particular. And I was pretty strong about my views, but just wanting to make Australia a better country and take in the 21st century, just like I was doing with the education system, and just realizing we need an independent press. The propaganda that was being pushed on both the major news companies in Australia upon the people, I thought was outrageous. And because it's subtle, there's so many Australians, and it'll be the same in America and England and Europe and South America or Russia. It's that people are too trusting. We had grown up and conditioned since we're children to trust what authorities, trust the authorities, trust what the government says, trust what's on the news, trust the TV. We become so trusting, we lose the ability to question. But what happens then, oh my God, they develop the ability to question anything that challenges that narrative. So if someone comes up with a different narrative or suggests this, we just go crazy, right? How dare they even think that? But here we are, once we become like that, we question everything else bar the lies that we're being fed. So I say to people that might want to be critics of Australian National Review, or myself, or people that follow Australian National Review, is that before you jump on your horse and your bandwagon, have you questioned what you believe yet? Have you questioned your narrative? Have you done research? Or do you just accept what's told to you by your governments is true? Because, of course, governments never, ever lie, right? How do you know when governments lie? They just lie all the time. Media, how do you know when the media's lie? They lie all the time. So the challenge that we face. So anyhow, my God, did I get a reality check once I started to go into politics, and there was a lot of, obviously, getting a lot of media, obviously hosting people like Arnold Schwarzenegger and things in Australia, you get a lot more media attention. And I started to notice, and I started to get attacked, particularly by one side of the media, which supports one side of politics, which is sort of the side that, I'll give you a clue. It's a side that preaches that we shouldn't hate people, but is very much into hate speech. It's a side that politics said we shouldn't be racist, but is very racist. It's a side that's completely deluded. Now, no credit, both sides of politics have their issues, but this side in particular. So obviously one of the senators for this side of politics was obviously appointed to go after me, and they used government agencies. I was targeted. But before that happened is that this particular large newspaper company in Australia started writing fake stories about me, planting that, stories that investors I had in certain land projects had lost all their money. And this went on for years, right? No one lost any money, and the projects were quite fine. I mean, it's very difficult to lose money just buying land and sitting on it. But of course, it was a complete setup. They were working with the government agency to target me, and because what they want to do is character assassinate you, because we had a goal to become, we only needed 1 or 2% of the vote as a political party, and it would be enough if we preferenced against one particular party, they would never be re-elected again in the country. So I guess we were a serious threat because I had 500,000 followers. I'd done well, self-made millionaire, done well for myself financially, and I was able to be articulate. And of course, you being a public speaker, I developed the ability, skill set. Tony Robbins is one of my earliest mentors, and I'd learned off Tony how to deliver presentations, how to public speak. So, unlike some political parties that have started in Australia where they weren't that articulate, and their message was, and they weren't able to defend themselves or argue effectively off the top of their head, so they weren't able to really achieve the outcome they wanted. But see, if you're not aware of Australian politics, anyone that started a new political party that has started to become or could become a threat to either the two major parties, because those who run the world like to make all the sort of the countries that they have control over both sides of the major political parties, so it doesn't matter, they can keep their interests protected. They don't want some upshot new political party coming along and they don't know, well, can they buy them? Can they, have them, bribe them, have them still do the things they want, to protect their elite interests. So what happened is that in Australia, people would know Pauline Hanson started a political party and they did jail her. They appointed someone in one of the major parties, actually Tony Abbott, who became Prime Minister many years later. And it was a pathetic case of Australian politics where she was jailed. Clive Palmer is another one, started a political party in Australia. They weren't able to jail him, but they certainly went after him heavily with government resources to try and destroy him financially. And the same thing happened to me. They certainly weren't able to jail me, but they were able to tie my companies up in legal battles for years, set government agencies onto me, and destroyed, a large amount of my companies, cost me $20-30 million in losses. I had over 100 staff at one stage across a group of companies. We had to let go pretty much all our staff. A lot of people lost their jobs. And just vicious attacks. But then what they do is they character assassinate you. So then people that believe everything that's written in the newspaper, that don't question and don't do any research, just assume because the papers told them that this person has done something wrong, they must have done something wrong. If starting a political party to want to bring your country into the 21st century and having a vision to 2050, and you can read policy ideas, the 21st Century Australia website still exists, and wanting to start a newspaper that wasn't controlled by the elite, wasn't controlled by people pushing agendas, and it could just be a platform for people to have critical debate. If I'm guilty of that, yes, I'm guilty of that. So, but that's the way the world works, because you can't have the truth getting to the surface. So anyhow, I had a running clash. I was invited to speak at a Senate hearing in Australia. And just by the way, yes, I will make available the 10-minute speech that I did, how the vision for Australia by 2050, which I delivered in New South Wales Parliament some years ago. I actually, unlike, as I said, many politicians, actually had a vision. Anyhow, I had a running clash with a senator of the political party that was out to destroy me on the left of politics. And I remember him saying, because it was in the early stages of Australian National Review, he called me a con man, which obviously the media wrote all about. Now, it's interesting. This con man senator stated very clearly in a running clash in the Senate in hearing, and said, well, Mr. McIntyre, why don't you write about me in your little newsletter? This is the arrogance and ignorance of our elected representatives, by the way. So we decided to, by the way. This is the power of media, even if it's a small news site. So, yes, we did decide to write about that Senator Sam Dastyari. You can research this. And we're happy to expose him for the Chinese bribes and money going into his bank account and becoming a traitor. He was working with the Chinese communist regime and going against the political party he's worked with, against their policies, and was taking money and bribes to further and push the Chinese communist interests in Australia. He had to resign in disgrace, and he's a disgrace to Australian politics. So this is the kind of individuals that called out me to be a con man in a Senate hearing, when I was there to defend and try and protect people that government agencies were causing millions and millions of dollars of losses to. So I want you to know that there is inherent corruption in our political systems. And now, of course, most of us should already know that. But what we try and do as a society, we try and conform and please the mainstream media. So by doing that, by giving our power away to the mainstream media, and we give our power away anytime you believe something that's in the paper or told to you by mainstream media without questioning it and validating it. So if someone writes a negative article about someone, such as myself, if you believe that without questioning it, then you're being played, you're being had. The people that don't want the truth to come to the surface are going to discredit and attack and character assassinate people that are trying to do the right thing. So in this is why it's so critically be educated, because I see so many people out there trying to make the world a better place, but the people that should be good people are trusting, believe everything the newspaper tells them, so they go and believe anything negative wrote about those people. Well, they're the people that have been attacked by the media are generally the good people. If you have a politician that is being idolized by the media, that is the first clue that politician is deeply and inherently corrupt. Look at the New Zealand Prime Minister. People love her. They fawn over the newspapers and media, fawn over her. She's a traitor to New Zealand. I'm sorry to tell you. She's so deep in with the communist regime in China, China pretty much will own New Zealand. Does it make sense? She's a puppet for the Chinese. She's elected and paid for by the New Zealand people, yet she works for the Chinese government. Wow, didn't know that? Of course she's idolized, because the major section of mainstream media is corrupt. Anything they tell you is not just embellishment or alarm. It's a complete engineered fake news lie. How much have they lied to you about the coronavirus? There's more evidence the coronavirus is a scam than there is evidence that it actually is what they claim it to be. There's no need to commit economic suicide. The cure is by far worse than the virus. I'm not saying the virus may not be deadly, but there's enough evidence to highlight that most of the people that recorded as deaths of the coronavirus did not die of the coronavirus. About 10%, 12% of them, according to the National Health Institute in Italy, and there's other assessments being done. It's actually even less than that. So we're not going to get in that right now, but my point is, people, we have to not only, I know I'm speaking to the converted, to those that are awake, but I need you to spread the message. We need to awaken a lot more people, because the corruption in this world, those elite that wish to control the world and abuse our public institutions, abuse our children, abuse our democracy, take our money, put us in debt, are the very people that are scared of the truth. That's why they hide in the shadows like cockroaches. All we have to do is be focused in our power of who we are in the truth and the honest and being good people, and shine the light on these cockroaches, and they will scatter. They are so scared of the truth. That's why they have to manipulate, distract you, and lie to you. Black Lives Matter. People getting caught up in Black Lives Matter. Have you ever not thought of, if you truly were against racism, the slogan Black Lives Matter is racist? Does it make sense? But I'm not going to go into that right now. Yes, black lives do matter. So do white lives matter. So do kids' lives matter. So does all lives matter. Does it make sense? You've got to understand it's a distraction. When they're distracting you, trying to get you stirred up that black lives matter, which, to make white people feel guilty. And yeah, sure, there's issues in racism in America and many countries, but they're minor issues in comparison, That's not what it's about. The people that are behind Black Lives Matter and behind Antifa and funding domestic terrorism, they don't give a shit about black people. Do you realize that? They don't care about black people. They don't care about anyone other than their bank accounts and more power, and continuing what they think they can do in this world and run the show, destroying our democracies, manipulating and playing as the fools. So the way they can manipulate is by being too trusting. We must stop being too trusting. We must research. We must get educated. We must develop the ability to critically think. We must be able to see bullshit. We must have very good bullshit detectors, and Australians are meant to be known for that. So I say to fellow Australians, stop being so easily manipulated and lied to by your mainstream media. Develop some good bullshit detectors. Stop voting on personality politics. I don't care if you hate someone's, if you're an American, you hate someone's hairstyle or you hate his personality. Beggars can't be choosers. Stop voting on personality. It's time to grow up as adults and take charge of our own world. Otherwise, if we don't, we will be dictated to the day we die, and our children and grandchildren will wake up as slaves in a totalitarian future run by communist regimes. That's where the world's heading. So we have to get passionate. We have to be outspoken. And you have to research and be critical thinkers and speak the truth. Because if you speak the truth, you will inspire so many others, and so many others will come out. And that silent majority that intuitively know that things aren't right in the world right now and that things are going in a bad way, that we must break free of the evilness that possesses this planet, that wants to keep us away from where the world could be. I want you to think for a moment how wonderful this world can become. There's many great people on the planet. There's many great things happening on the planet. But we could create an amazing country, an amazing globe, amazing planet. Humans are living a fraction of the potential. We have to move through our fear. Don't let fear control us. Don't let us be played by con men out there, this elite liars, these pedophiles, this pathetic a group of elite people that think they can dictate to you how you're going to live and think they can get away with and think they're above the law. It's time we shine the light on these cockroaches and expose them. And that's a big part of what Australian National Review is all about. I appreciate your support. The world is at war, folks. It may be a covert war, but it's time we realize that and started speaking out if we want to defend our freedoms and want a true democracy one day. Talk to you soon.